Good morning and welcome to Little by Little, a short time in God's Word. Today, March 27th, we are getting ever closer to Good Friday and the cross. So we're going to be picking up in chapter 23 of Luke, verse 6. It says, when Pilate heard this, that he was from Galilee, he asked whether this man was a Galilean, and he learned that he belonged to Herod's jurisdiction. He sent him over to Herod, who himself was in Jerusalem at that time. When Herod saw Jesus, he was very glad. He had long desired to see him because he had heard about him, and he was hoping to see some sign done by him. So he questioned him at some length, but he made no answer. That's Jesus. The chief priests and the scribes stood by, vehemently accusing him, and Herod with his soldiers treated him with contempt and mocked him. Then arraying him in splendid clothing, he sent him back to Pilate. Herod and Pilate became friends with each other that very day, for before this they had been in enmity with each other. Pilate then called together the chief priests and the rulers and the people, and he said, "You brought me this man as one who was misleading the people, and after examining him before you, behold, I did not find this man guilty of any of your charges against him, neither did Herod, for he sent him back to us. Look, nothing deserving death has been done by him. I will therefore punish and release him." So the kangaroo courts, if you will, continue as Jesus is shuffled back and forth from Pilate to Herod and back to Pilate. And in all of these situations, there's nothing to be found, which really frustrates the religious guys, as we'll see in a moment. And it brings Herod and Pilate together, and it shows Jesus not going to perform signs for people that are not genuinely interested in faith and believing. They just wanted to see something miraculous and have Jesus perform. And so he took the abuse, he took all that was offered, but he didn't perform for them. But they all cried together, verse 18, away with this man, and release to us Barabbas, a man who had been thrown into prison for an insurrection started in the city and for murder. Pilate addressed them once more, desiring to release Jesus, but they kept shouting, "Crucify, crucify him." A third time he said to them, "What evil has he done? I found in him no guilt deserving death. I will therefore punish and release him." This is the second time. But they were urgent, demanding with loud voices that he should be crucified, and their voices prevailed. So Pilate decided that their demand should be granted. He released the man who had been thrown into prison for insurrection and murder, for whom they asked, but he delivered Jesus over to their will. And again, over to the will of the people, sure, but really ultimately to the will of God, because this was God's plan, right? To have Jesus go to the cross. And the irony, right, of an actual insurrectionist, someone who is and was guilty of murder, someone who was trying to disrupt the Romans and the government, is released for Jesus to be arrested and condemned instead. And that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to get Rome to crucify Jesus, and so they tried to bring him up as this insurrectionist, causing mayhem, not paying taxes, doing all these things, and none of them were true, and Pilate could see that. And the other Gospels tell us his wife has a dream and tells Pilate, "Hey, I have nothing to do with this man." Pilate tries to wash his hands of the whole situation, and yet the crowd gets stirred up to yell out, "Crucify him, crucify him, release to us Barabbas." And in other Gospels, "We have no king but Caesar." "What should we do with your king then?" "Well, we have no king but Caesar. Crucify him." Right? They just go down the rabbit hole, and you can get all mad at people or the Jews and the religious people there, or you could just realize God has a plan. It's being enacted here. And so Jesus is going to go to the cross, and we're going to read about that tomorrow. As you're thinking through these things, even just these days leading to Friday, as Jesus comes in and out, and he would have been having his Passover meal, and then prayer in the garden and all these things, and now we're moving into the courts on Thursday. Continue to see that it's not done to him, but it's done for us. Everything that's done to him is because he's allowed to happen. It hasn't like gone past him, right? The moment's not too big. The purposes of God are prevailing even here. And when it doesn't look like it in your life or mine, trust that God is in control. If he could endure to the point of death to accomplish the will of the Father, he'll be there for you no matter what you go through. He's been tried and tested, yet was without sin. You can come to him. He knows what it's like to be betrayed. He knows what it's like to suffer unjustly. And he'll walk with you to see you come through the other side. For Jesus, it's, imagine a painful time. But he knows the end goal, and it keeps him going forward. Till next time, keep growing, little by little.